Commander Xylith adjusted his neural amplification crown as the massive Vorthak dreadnought Terror's Edge descended through Earth's atmosphere. The ship's hull gleamed like black obsidian, its surface rippling with the same fear manifestation, technology that had conquered 47 worlds. Behind him, his bridge crew monitored the psychic dampening fields that would soon transform this primitive planet's children into whimpering vessels of terror. "Target acquired, Commander," reported Sub-Lieutenant Vrex, his four eyes glowing amber as data streams flowed across his retinal displays. "Human settlement designated Millbrook Valley. Population, 12,000. Juvenile concentration, optimal." Xylith's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. The Vorthak had perfected psychological warfare over millennia. First, they deployed their neural field technology over populated areas, scanning the minds of children to identify their deepest fears. Then those fears became real, manifested as tangible creatures that spread panic through entire civilizations. Parents abandoned hope when they watched their children terrorized by monsters pulled from nightmares. Governments surrendered rather than watch their future generations destroyed. "Initialize the Fear-Weave Protocol," Xylith commanded, his voice resonating through the ship's organic communication systems. "Begin with the educational facility. Children gathered in large groups amplify the terror exponentially." Dr. Kess, the expedition's chief psycho-architect, raised her head from the scanning console. Her elongated skull pulsed with bioluminescent patterns as she processed the incoming data. "Commander, I'm detecting unusual neural patterns from the target subjects. Their fear responses are inconsistent with our predictive models." "Explain," Xylith demanded, his patience already wearing thin. The Empire had sent him to complete this conquest within 3 rotations. Earth's resources were needed for the coming war against the Galactic Federation. The juveniles show fear, markers. But they're accompanied by something else: elevated creativity indices, problem-solving impulses, and what our translation matrix labels as wonder. These patterns are unlike anything we've encountered. Xylith's secondary eyes narrowed. In 4 decades of conquest, he had never encountered a species whose children didn't break immediately under the fear weave. Irrelevant. Deploy the field at maximum intensity. If their minds are chaotic, we'll simply overwhelm them with more terror. The Terror's Edge positioned itself above Millbrook Elementary School, its shadow falling across the playground where 300 children played during recess. Ancient alien machinery hummed to life, sending invisible tendrils of psychic energy down toward the unsuspecting humans below. Neural scanners pierced young minds, cataloging fears and anxieties to be weaponized against them. But as the fear manifestation field activated, something unprecedented began to happen. 8-year-old Emma Rodriguez was sitting under the old oak tree, having a tea party with her stuffed dragon, Mr. Scales, when the world began to shimmer. At first, she thought it was heat waves rising from the asphalt, but then the air itself seemed to thicken, like invisible honey. "Do you feel that, Mr. Scales?" Emma whispered to her beloved toy, its emerald green fabric worn soft from countless adventures. Around the playground, other children had stopped their games, looking up at the sky with expressions of confusion and growing unease. That's when the shadows came alive. From the edges of the playground, dark shapes began to emerge, twisted creatures that seemed to be made of pure nightmare. A massive spider with too many eyes scuttled toward a group of kindergartners. Shapeless things with gnashing teeth oozed from storm drains. The fears of 300 children were taking physical form, just as the Vorthak had planned. Screams echoed across the playground as children scattered, but Emma didn't run. Instead, she stared at the approaching shadow spider with intense concentration, her small hands gripping Mr. Scales tighter. "You know what to do," she whispered to her stuffed dragon. And something extraordinary happened. Mr. Scales's button eyes began to glow. His soft fabric body expanded, growing larger and more vibrant with each passing second. Emerald scales became real and gleaming. Tiny wings unfurled into majestic flight membranes, and when he opened his mouth, real fire blazed forth. The dragon, now the size of a small car, positioned himself between Emma and the shadow spider, releasing a roar that shook windows across the school. The nightmare creature recoiled, its form wavering as it encountered something it wasn't programmed to handle. Imagination given form. Across the playground, similar miracles were occurring. 10-year-old Marcus Thompson's invisible friend, Captain Cosmos, materialized as a towering figure in a glittering spacesuit, energy shields deflecting the claws of approaching fear beasts. Lily Chen's collection of toy horses transformed into a galloping cavalry that trampled shadow creatures underfoot. But the most spectacular transformation belonged to Sarah Kim, the quiet girl who always carried a sketchbook. As nightmare creatures surrounded her, she tore pages from her book and threw them into the air. The crayon drawings came alive. Stick figure superheroes grew three-dimensional and began battling monsters with impossible powers. Cartoon animals became fierce protectors, and rainbow bridges appeared to carry frightened children to safety. Aboard the Terror's Edge, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Dr. Kess stared at her readings in disbelief, her bioluminescent, patterns flashing in rapid, panicked sequences. "Commander, the neural field is destabilizing. The fear manifestations are being countered by something our systems can't classify." Commander Xyleth pushed past her to view the monitors showing the school playground. His four eyes widened as he watched stuffed animals grow into mighty guardians, imaginary friends become real protectors, and children's artwork transform into an army of impossible creatures that fought with the logic of pure imagination. "What is this sorcery?" he hissed, his mandibles clicking in agitation. "It's not sorcery, sir," Vrex reported from his station. "Our fear manifestation field works by making thoughts tangible. We assumed we could control what manifested, but these humans, their children don't just think about fears. They think about solutions." The battle raged across Millbrook Elementary as reality bent to accommodate both alien technology and human imagination. Commander Xyleth watched from his bridge as his carefully planned psychological assault devolved into chaos that defied every military strategy in the Vorthak archives. The children had quickly adapted to their newfound power. Once they realized their thoughts could become real, they began collaborating in ways that made the alien commander's head throb. Emma's dragon, Mr. Scales, had been joined by an entire menagerie of living toys. Tommy's Captain Cosmos coordinated with Sarah's Drawn, superheroes to establish defensive perimeters. What had started as individual manifestations was becoming a unified force operating on playground logic. "Status report," Xyleth demanded, his patience evaporating like morning dew. Sub-Lieutenant Vrex's readings painted an increasingly grim picture. 17 of our primary fear constructs have been neutralized, Commander. The shadow spider was defeated when a human child convinced it that spiders were actually friendly. The nightmare hounds retreated after a group decided they were just scared puppies who needed hugs. Dr. Kess looked up from her neural analysis console, her patterns flickering with scientific fascination despite their deteriorating situation. "Commander, these humans possess something we've never encountered, weaponized optimism. Their young genuinely believe that every problem has a solution, that good always triumphs over evil, and that friendship can overcome any obstacle. When filtered through our manifestation field, these beliefs become physical laws." To demonstrate her point, she directed his attention to the playground monitors. A group of third graders had surrounded one of the fear beasts, a writhing mass of tentacles and teeth designed to represent primal terror. But instead of fleeing, the children had begun singing a song about friendship. As their voices joined together, golden light began emanating from their joined hands, and the creature was transforming, its malevolent features softening into something resembling a confused but harmless octopus. "Impossible," Xyleth muttered, but the evidence was undeniable. The situation grew worse by the minute. 9-year-old Alex Martinez had convinced his toy robot that it was actually a giant mech suit and was now piloting it against aerial fear constructs with devastating effectiveness. A group of first graders had turned jump ropes into binding lasers that could immobilize nightmare creatures. Most disturbingly, 12-year-old David Park had somehow convinced a fear manifestation that it was actually a misunderstood monster who just needed a friend, causing it to switch sides entirely. "Sir," Vrex reported with growing alarm, "the children's manifestations are affecting our ship's systems. A human child just asked why bad guys always have ugly spaceships, and our hull is beginning to sparkle. Indeed, the Terror's Edge was undergoing an unwanted transformation. Its menacing black surface was becoming iridescent, shifting through colors that shouldn't exist. The ship's organic architecture was sprouting what appeared to be decorative flowers. Dr. Kess frantically worked at her console, trying to contain the expanding field of influence. The neural manifestation field is resonating with their collective belief system. They're not just defending against our attacks, they're rewriting the fundamental rules of this engagement. "Then we overwhelm them," Xyleth snarled. "Deploy all remaining fear constructs simultaneously. Flood their minds with so much terror that their little imaginations break. Commander, I advise against execute the order. Every nightmare creature, shadow beast, and fear manifestation stored in the ship's psychic arsenal materialized at once around the school." Hundreds of monsters emerged from dark corners, their forms representing every childhood terror the Vorthak had cataloged from 47 conquered worlds. But the children of Millbrook Elementary had learned something important in the past. When you're facing impossible odds, you don't fight alone. Emma stood on Mr. Scales's back, addressing the assembled students through a megaphone that had materialized from someone's belief that every hero needed a way to inspire others. "Remember," she called out, "we're the good guys, and good guys always win." 300 young voices cheered in agreement, and reality shuddered under the weight of their collective conviction. What happened next would be studied by xenopsychologists for generations, though most would dismiss the reports as impossible. 300 children, armed with nothing but imagination and an unshakable belief in happy endings, began to rewrite the laws of physics through sheer force of narrative expectation. Commander Xyleth watched in horror as his overwhelming assault transformed into something resembling a cosmic playground fight. His fear constructs, designed to be unstoppable engines of terror, found themselves bound by rules they had never encountered. The rules of children's stories, where heroes always find a way to win. "Report!" he barked, though part of him dreaded the answer. "The manifestation field has become completely destabilized," Dr. Kess replied, her voice tinged with something between scientific wonder and existential dread. "The human children have somehow convinced our technology that reality operates according to narrative logic rather than physical laws." Sub-Lieutenant Vrex's readings confirmed the impossible. "Sir, our fear beasts are experiencing what can only be described as conscience. Several have stopped attacking entirely. One of the shadow hunters has apparently decided to become a school guidance counselor. On the playground below, the battle had evolved into something unprecedented. 10-year-old Maria Santos had convinced a pack of nightmare wolves that they were actually friendly dogs who had just been having a bad day. They now wagged their tails and played fetch with glowing tennis balls manifested by 6-year-old Jamie Lee. The crown jewel of impossibility belonged to Bobby Chen, an 8-year-old who had looked at the largest fear construct, a writhing amalgamation of every phobia known to sentient life, and declared it was just scared because nobody understood it. The creature was now sitting in a circle of children, participating in what appeared to be group therapy. "This violates every known law of xenopsychology," Dr. Kess muttered, but she couldn't stop watching. The children had created a feedback loop within the manifestation field. Every act of kindness, every moment of courage, every insistence that problems could be solved through friendship and determination was being amplified and broadcast back through the alien technology. "Commander," Vrex reported with increasing urgency, "our ship's defensive systems are being affected. The children's collective belief that bad guys always lose in the end is somehow manifesting as actual system failures. Indeed, the Terror's edge was experiencing cascade malfunctions as reality adjusted to accommodate Earth's most powerful force, childhood optimism weaponized through alien technology." Warning lights that had been designed to instill dread were now glowing in cheerful pastels. The ship's intimidating organic architecture was sprouting what could only be described as playground equipment. But the most dangerous development was yet to come. 11-year-old genius Lisa Park had been quietly working on her tablet throughout the battle, and she had reached a conclusion that made Commander Xyleth's blood run cold. "Hey, everyone!" Lisa called out, her voice carrying across the playground. "I figured out how their spaceship works. It's powered by making people scared, but what if we made them feel something else instead?" The children turned their attention skyward, 300 young minds focusing on the alien vessel with dangerous intent. Emma rode Mr. Scales higher into the air, followed by Sarah's flying crayon drawings and Marcus's invisible friend, who had somehow acquired a jetpack. "What if," Emma announced with the kind of devastating innocence that topples empires, "instead of being scary aliens, they were just lonely space travelers who needed friends?" The manifestation field, already destabilized by an hour of narrative, logic began to resonate with this new possibility. Aboard the Terror's Edge, alarms blared as the ship's core systems started responding to an emotion they had never been designed to process: hope. "Emergency evacuation," Xyleth commanded, but it was too late. The children's collective belief that everyone could be redeemed, that every villain was just a hero who had lost their way, was spreading through the alien technology like a benevolent virus. Dr. Kess looked up from her console with an expression of amazed terror. "Commander, the manifestation field is inverting. Instead of weaponizing fear, it's beginning to manifest compassion. If this continues, our entire invasion force will be converted into..." "Into what?" Xyleth demanded. "Into the kind of people who believe in happy endings." 6 months later, the former Vorthak dreadnought Terror's Edge hung in Earth's orbit, though it looked nothing like the menacing vessel that had arrived to conquer humanity. The ship's hull now gleamed with rainbow patterns that shifted based on the mood of its crew. Gardens grew in spaces that had once housed weapons, and what had been a bridge designed for psychological warfare now resembled a cross between a command center and a kindergarten classroom. Commander Xyleth, now preferring to be called Commander, Z as the children had dubbed him, stood before the United Nations General Assembly, his appearance dramatically altered by months of exposure to weaponized optimism. His once fearsome mandibles had been decorated with friendship bracelets made by the students of Millbrook Elementary. His 4 eyes, previously cold and calculating, now sparkled with something that xenobiologists were still trying to classify, but which resembled wonder. "Honorable delegates of Earth," he began, his voice translator now programmed to convey warmth rather than intimidation, "I come before you not as a conqueror, but as a reformed being who has learned the most powerful force in the universe, the unshakable belief that things can always get better." The transformation hadn't been instant. For weeks after the initial encounter, the manifestation field had continued to operate, gradually converting every member of the Vorthak crew as the children's influence spread throughout the ship. Dr. Kess had been the first to succumb, her scientific mind fascinated by the implications of reality-altering optimism. Sub-Lieutenant Vrex had held out longer, but ultimately fell to the power of a crayon drawing that Emma had made, showing him with a smile. "The Vorthak Empire," Commander Z continued, "built its power on the principle that fear was the strongest motivator in the universe. We were wrong. Fear may be powerful, but hope is unstoppable. Friendship may seem fragile, but it can rewrite the laws of physics. And the belief that every problem has a solution doesn't just change minds, it changes reality itself. In the audience, Emma Rodriguez sat with her parents, Mr. Scales perched on her lap in his normal stuffed animal form, though his button eyes still held a hint of draconic wisdom. Around her sat the other children who had defended their school that day, now known throughout the galaxy as the Imagination Guard. The implications of what had happened at Millbrook Elementary were still being studied by scientists across known space. The manifestation field technology, once used for conquest, had been reverse-engineered and was now being deployed as a force for creativity and problem-solving. Worlds that had been conquered by the Vorthak were being liberated not through warfare, but through the simple expedient of exposing them to the Earth children's radical belief that everyone deserved a chance to be better. "The former Vorthak Empire," Commander Z announced, "hereby pledges itself to the protection of imagination, wonder, and the revolutionary idea that good guys always win, not through superior firepower, but through superior friendship." The general assembly erupted in applause, but the loudest cheers came from the children in the gallery. They had learned something that day 6 months ago that no military academy in the galaxy taught. Sometimes the most powerful weapon is the absolute refusal to accept that problems can't be solved. Later that evening, as Earth's newest orbital guardian ship prepared to depart on its first mission to spread hope throughout the galaxy, Emma stood in her backyard looking up at the stars. Mr. Scales sat beside her in the grass, and though he appeared to be an ordinary stuffed dragon, she could swear she heard him whisper in a voice like distant thunder, "Ready for our next adventure?" Emma grinned, her 8-year-old mind already imagining all the impossible things that were about to become possible. Somewhere out there, other children on other worlds were facing their own monsters, not knowing that help was coming in the form of a rainbow-colored spaceship, crewed by reformed villains who had learned the most important lesson in the universe. Sometimes, all it takes to change everything is the unwavering belief that tomorrow will be better than today. And in a cosmos where thought could become reality, that belief was the most dangerous weapon of all. The stars twinkled overhead, and Emma could have sworn they were winking at her, as if the universe itself was in on the secret. That imagination, hope, and the logic of playground justice were about to revolutionize everything. After all, good guys always win in the end. Fils Sadar.